So let's talk about Fright Without. Fright Without is the name of your fourth full-length album, and at the time that we're having this conversation, it was officially released a few days ago. When did you actually start working on this?
We started working on it shortly after our last record came out in 2018. We got pretty much right back on the horse and started writing some new material. So yeah, like 2018, started writing and then wrote and wrote and wrote. And then at one point, I think it was late 2019, we were just like, all right, let's book some studio time, because if we don't, we're just going to be writing perpetually. So let's like cut it off here. And we booked the time for April of 2020. Yeah, exactly. Right. And then obviously, blah, 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 the pandemic hit, but we still, I think we pushed it off like a little bit. I think we still went in April, but we were all, I don't need to explain it. Everyone was like sketched out, but we were kind of like, you know what? I think we can do this. We still remember the songs, it was a big enough studio that we could go in, wear masks, stay away from each other, and like sanitize the shit out of everything. And so, yeah, we recorded it in like the thick of the fear-stricken pandemic. And yeah, so so that was 2020. And then, yeah, I think we got it mixed a year later by Kurt Ballou, and then mastered around the same time. So that was 2021. And then sent to the presses around then, and we just got it, a couple of months ago. There was like a 14-month, period of it getting pressed on the vinyl, which was fucking ridiculous. But this is the world we live in, man. And now it's out, and it was 4 years. So yeah, it feels good, man. It feels really good that it's out and you can buy it, and I don't have to worry about it until the next one. So,
And we'll speak about Kurt and the other people who were involved in the recording and mixing and mastering of the album. As far as the writing goes, you mentioned you had actually started working on this on the heels of Cemetery Preston, which was your 2018 release. Did you go into this album wanting to do anything different or try new things?
Kind of, but not any more so than usual. Like we're always trying to do new stuff and be a bit fearless and daring with what we're doing. And that was pretty much the goal. I think actually one of the main things was like, we wanted to make it like a lot more organic. Like Cemetery Preston, we had like a click track for the whole thing. And it was like, it was like kind of like industry bullshit. But this one, we didn't have a click track. And that's something that we really wanted to do. Just let the thing fluctuate and breathe. And yeah, other than that, like there was no real sort of like idea or sort of path that we thought of. It just kind of like revealed itself over time, which I think is a really sweet thing with making music.
And you had some guests on this album, right?
Yeah, we had our good friend Kevin Keegan, who plays in Dead Quiet and also played in Barn Burner. He did some clean vocals at the end of a song called Fabricated Purpose, which was awesome of him to do that. And my dear friend Mathieu Villandre, who played drums in Fuck the Facts, he did some clean guitars on the end of Larkinitis. And yeah, another good friend, Scott Miller, he did some guitars and some vocals. And my friend Nate did some noise. Yeah, there was like a decent amount of collaboration. Oh yeah, and Sean Pearson, the guy who recorded the drums, he did some like drones and some other like layers and textures and synths and whatnot. So
now, with the complications with recording, were the guest contributors able to come into the studio, or did they did they record their parts remotely?
Everyone did their stuff remotely, which is probably what we would have done anyways, only because like Kevin lives in Vancouver and Phil lives in Ottawa, and everyone kind of lives in their own world. So I would just send them a track and just tell them, go to town, do your thing. And yeah, it was all done remote.
So you mentioned Sean Pearson, who you've worked with before as an engineer. He recorded the drums, but you recorded your parts in your own studio, right?
Yes, the bass and the vocals and a couple other little guitar noodles. Yeah, I recorded at our jam hall that I gave the handle of MoX Audio, which is short for most expensive audio. I recorded a band years ago, and my friend was like, "You should call this Most Expensive Studios." And I was like, "All right," because I think I was doing it for beer or something. So I was like, "Most expensive, eh? It's got a ring to it." But yeah, no, I did have a lot of help, mainly from Kurt and my friend Scott Miller, just sending them bass tones and being like, "Man, does this sound all right? Like, am I going crazy? Am I going deaf? Please help me." And they were like, "No, it sounds okay. Record it." And yeah, that was recording the bass.
And we should talk about your bass tone, because you have a very specialized setup to get the full sound that Greber has. Do you want to mention a little bit about how you achieve that sound?
Yeah, sure, man. On record, I would track the there's pretty much just like two kind of like signals going on, or two sort of like, I don't know, it's hard to describe. I would track the sort of higher frequency bass, the same bass, but just like played through a guitar amp, kind of the guitar bass. I would do that 4 times. So there'd be like 2 performances on the left side and 2 performances on the right side. And then right up the middle, I would record like a bass sound through like an SVT that was more like, that was just up the middle. So essentially the song got played like 5 times just so it had like that fullness. So I guess that's on record. Live, I've got 2 Marshall 412s and 2 Ampeg 810s. And then, kind of the same thing. There's like a higher frequency guitar-y, distortion-y signal that goes through the guitar cabs. And then there's a more like low, more like traditional bass tone that goes through the bass cabs. And that's pretty much it.
Live, you do a lot of splitting, right? Like in the studio, you can do overdubs, but live, you have to split the signal a bunch of times.
Yeah. It's pretty much the same split. Like I've got like a distortion pedal into like a 5150, and that feeds the guitar cabs. And then I've got like a Boss ODB overdrive, and then I split that into 2 SVT heads that one powers like 1 per 810.
Let's talk about the people who you got to help you with the recording. How did Kurt get involved with this?
I worked with him a while back on. I had this kind of like project called Cancelled, where I got him to mix 3 songs for that. So we had like kind of had a relationship doing that before, and we were just like, we had played a bunch of shows and we had saved up a bit of cash, and we were kind of like, man, let's just go for it. Let's just try and see if Kurt would be willing to mix the record. Because both Steve and I are like huge fans of his music and his production. So we reached out and we were like, when's going to work? Like, do you have time? Would you be interested? And he's like, yeah, no, I'm totally down. And we just booked it up, and he just went to town.
Now, was there something specific you wanted Kurt to bring to your sound, which is why you wanted to work with him?
Yeah, pretty much just, just his ear and his know-how, and make it just sound like insanely huge. Like, and he's been doing it forever, and he knows his way around to like try and figure out exactly what he needed and what kind of like we were interested in achieving with it. But at the end of the day, he totally got it. We did like a bunch of back and forth revisions, and he was totally cool with like, he got it right away. He like knew what was up, and there was very few sort of tweaks that it needed to be awesome. So
yeah, the sound is impressively huge throughout. I mean, not just for the bass sound, but for the album as a whole. I mean, I'm assuming that Kurt, as a, he's extremely knowledgeable as a studio engineer, and so was he giving you feedback as far as like what to do when you're recording on your end?
Oh, for sure. Like I think it was a couple days before I started tracking the bass. I sent him like a couple samples. Like I just threw up every microphone I had and, used a couple different heads and a couple different pedals. I think I maybe sent him like 4 or 5 different sort of variations. I was like, hey, which one of these is going to like work best for you? And he's like, oh, give me some of this and a little bit of that. And so he definitely helped in whittling down the equipment that I was going to send or going to use to track. And yeah, with the drums, he's got a pretty like, before he mixes or, before when you're in the process of like talking to him, he's got like a kind of one sheet that he's like, hey, you want to send me something to mix? Here's a bunch of stuff that I would really, really, really like on your end. And it's super thorough and, kick mics. This is the kind of kick drum I want. Maybe 2 mics, blah, blah, blah. Like it's a very thorough sort of walkthrough of the technical sort of stuff that he's looking to get, which is totally, totally cool. Cause like, you don't want to just send the guy like a bunch of garbage and be like, all right, make this sound like a Kurt Ballou record. He'd be like, well, I can't because this sounds like dog shit. So he's very particular, as he should be, in what you send him. So, but yeah, no. And he was good. Like I said, we spoke on the phone a couple times and just sort of like brainstormed some ideas, and super, super lovely dude. Like, man, what was I doing? Oh, I think I like asked him just a random question years ago. I was like, hey, what pedal you use for this? And like within like 10 minutes, he got back to me. He's like, oh, hey, how's it going, man? Glad you like that part. Here's what I used. And he sent it from his iPhone for 10 minutes. Just some dipshit kid who's like, yo, man, what pedal is that? Like, this guy's probably busy as hell, but he's still like, man, it's better than me. I can't do that.